Hi, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, I must admit I'm a sucker for quotes from great people that I actually admire, and when I read some of the great quotes, I frequently find somebody else that I can admire. But some of the quotes that make me laugh are not are from movies which have just seemed so eloquent when I've heard them. And there was a movie called The Time Bandits, and it featured a lot of great artists who obviously worked for not a huge salary because it was such a cool movie. It was about a group of diminutive men, dwarves, who steal a map of the universe showing all of the portals that are spaced around the planet, which allow for movement in a quantum jump into, in their case, into different time places. So on with this, you've got good and evil, and evil was played by an English actor who, for the life of me, I can't remember his name, but somebody out there probably will, and he was an extremely fruity, proper way of talking, you know, like I've often said. And at one point, this is evil, by the way, at one point he's in his lair, which always seems to be underground, and the decor is terrible, but he's in there and he's on his kind of a throne, and one of his underlings, one of his they're always very ugly, aren't they? Always very ugly, and they always talk really stupid. But anyway, one of them comes out with a remark that is so incredibly stupid, and evil looks like this in despair, and then he says to the underling, "Yours is a mind untroubled by the ravages of intelligent thought." I thought that was a great one. So now, you had a lot of people who said incredibly things. Some people have this way of saying something which is memorable. Oscar Wilde and Mark Twain are two people that I've often thought have that ability to engage in repartee that is brilliant, as if they've sat up at night thinking them through. But Oscar Wilde was with some people who admired him greatly once, and he had a caustic wit, didn't he? And he made a comment which was obviously really ingenious and clever, and somebody said to him, "Oh gosh, I wish I'd said that." And Oscar Wilde said, "You will, you will." Mark Twain was famous for many things. I read quite a bit of Mark Twain. One of the greatest books that I read of Mark Twain is not often it's not touted as being his great books. You always think of Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and books like that, stories like that. But there was one in which he described his life on the Mississippi, because he actually was a pilot, and back in the days of the old steamboats, those paddle steamers, that was one heck of a skill, and I read that with delight. That was such a great book, great story. So one of the things that he said, though, at one point, in order to raise money, he got to a sticky point in his life. It might have been to pay off taxes or something. But anyway, he started to travel, and I think that he did various engagements, giving talks, and he was a great raconteur, obviously. But while he was away, he actually sailed down the Nile. You could, at one time, you could actually take that trip And people would go and they would live on the boat, and they sailed down the Nile. And he was away for quite a time, and I guess he was out of communication, and the rumour went around that he was dead. When he heard about this, somebody obviously said to him, Mark, do you know that you have been you've been declared dead, or that's been the news? And he said, and I'm having to paraphrase it a little here, he said, "News of my death has been greatly exaggerated." How beautifully said. Now one of the other things that I like is I like a little bit of good advice that is put in a humorous way. So here's advice of before you get into a fight. So before you fight a man, walk a mile in his shoes. Now then, if it still doesn't work out, you've got a mile start on him and you've got his shoes. I like that. Now this was a very poignant thing that I heard said in a movie. I think it was the movie that had Jodie Foster playing in The King and I, and there was a remake of The King and I, and in it they had one of the little cameo parts in that was of two people who were in love. But the woman was part of the king's. I think she may have even been one of the king's concubines. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, she couldn't be with the man she loved, and the man she loved was so distraught by it that he joined a monastery. And this was when you could join a monastery and be part of that. They shaved your head and did the, I don't know, the 6 scars on top of those 6 burn marks. I'm taking that from the movie Kung Fu, and some of the other Kung Fu movies that I've seen. Don't know how much fact there is on that. But anyway, she runs away. She runs away from the palace, and she actually joins the monastery, and she shaves her head, and she conceals the fact that she is a woman, obviously, and she is close to the man that she loves. Such is the poetic love that she felt for him, and she pays for that. Both of them pay for that with their lives, because they get found out. Back then it was a treasonous, punishable by death act, and they both get caught, and they are publicly executed by beheading. And before that, she speaks to Jodie Foster and asks her for her help, and Jodie Foster, as the governess, does plead for the life of this girl, but to no avail. The king has to, according to his own laws, he cannot allow it. But the woman says that she's talking to Jodie Foster, and I think that Jodie Foster may have said, you made a choice. That it was your choice to love this man, knowing that it wasn't according to the laws of the land. And the woman said, if love was a choice, who would choose such exquisite pain? I thought that was beautiful. Now, one of my own things that I've learned in the fairly excuse me, the fairly recent past is that we tend to always talk about the measure of a man. I mean, the measure of a man, well, there's one here, look, that I wrote down. It says, the measure of a man is how he bears up under misfortune. I often think that the measure of a man is not so much how he is as a friend, even though it's very important to be a good friend. If you're going to be a friend, it's a good, you should be an honourable and good friend. But how about the measure of a man when he becomes your enemy? Now that is the real measure, because once the affinity side, the liking, the love goes out of a relationship, which is in basic components is many parted, is many parts, then you're hinging everything on traits of character, things like honesty and a sense of fairness, a sense of right and wrong, a sense of justice. And so often when a man becomes an enemy to you, those things are easy to forget. So you think about this the next time that you go into being enemy with somebody. It's not a reason or an excuse or permission to behave in an abominable way. That's not how it works. If you consider that you are an ethical, righteous, honest, fair, loyal friend, then you should attach all of those qualities to being an enemy. You should be fair, you should be honest, you should be just. You should not do things, surely, which show you up to being the worst kind of person. You should still be able to face yourself in the bathroom mirror and know that you have done the right thing, irrespective of whether the person that you are forced to respect is an enemy. Now, a long time ago, and I've mentioned this before because it seems an almost impossible task. It's an almost impossible challenge, I think. But 3 questions that I felt I would love to meet someone who could answer these 3 questions in the affirmative. And that is, could you do a great kindness to someone and remain anonymous? I mean completely anonymous, to tell no one. Could you do that? A great kindness and tell no one. Now, could you then stand by while someone else took the credit and say nothing, still remain silent? That would be a challenge. Now, here's the 3rd question, and who knows, you could only aspire to something like this, but just remember that Jesus Christ said it's easy to forgive your friends. Forgiving your enemies is the thing, and I'm the first to admit that I'm a work in progress on this. But the 3rd question is, could you then be a loyal, true, supportive friend to that person who took the credit for your anonymous kind deed? Could you be a good friend to them and not reveal what you know about what he did, she did? Boy, I think that those are qualities that, that we could aspire to, couldn't we? Well, for me, there's a lot of aspiring to be going on with that kind of thing, but it seemed to me that would be a huge test of courage and faith and knowing yourself. So those are my smart things, the smartest things that were ever said. Not that my 3 questions are the smartest thing, they're just difficult. I thank you for looking in. Hope this gives you some food for thought. By the way, I would like to mention that while I was out today and I was with my friends Vivian and Alvin, and we went for McDonald's while we were waiting for the lunch break to be over so that we could get another part for the truck. And a lady came up to me and said, are you that man who puts the videos onto on YouTube? And I tried to hide under the table and get ready to defend myself, and it turned out there was no need. She said, I've really enjoyed you and your wife doing videos, and I watch and follow the channel, and I'm a subscriber, and thank you. And for me it was a pleasant thing, because it told us that some of what we're doing, at least for some people, is enjoyable, and she thought that it was a worthy thing to be doing. So that was Adele. Adele, hello again. Thank you for coming up and talking to me. Thank you for coming up and giving me that acknowledgement, which I appreciated and felt honoured to receive. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Thank you. Bye bye for now.